Today, I want to talk about what is democratic socialism and is it good for Chicanos, for Raza? And I'm bringing this up because this week there was an election for congressional seats. That means the big seats in Washington, because in the Congress, there's only 435 representatives throughout the entire country. Depending on the population of the state, they are going to have more representatives than others. So, for example, New York and California are huge, so they have the most representatives. For example, California is monstrous. New York too, but the city in New York, that's what we're going to focus on today because something happened that people are either happy with or not. And the question then arises, what is democratic socialism? Because those are the candidates who actually, made news because they won. A lot of them were young. A lot of them were people of color and or raza, and a lot of them were democratic socialists. They call themselves democratic socialists. So what happened was the mayor of New York, who is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, and is also a member of the Democratic Party. He just happens to be part of that wing, the Democratic Socialists. He is an, outright, doesn't matter, unapologetic socialist, and that's a good thing. He won last year. He beat the establishment of the Democratic Party. I personally thought it was a good thing because it sent a message to the Democratic Party of how much they're failing, especially with the younger generation. Well, this mayor of New York, this Democratic Socialist mayor of New York, endorses three candidates against the establishment, against the Democratic Party. And he puts his reputation out there, he puts his credibility out there, and he says, I'm going to endorse these three. That included, and I'll read their names so that way people can look them up. Guy named Brad Landers, who I'm not crazy about, but the brother got arrested. He's a white man, got arrested protesting ICE last year. That's a good thing. I have questions about him. And then there was Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier, and she won, and whoa, this woman is incredible. She just overthrew this establishment Democratic member who has been there, I think, for over 20 years. I can't remember how long, SBI, but this guy's a sellout to the Zionists. And then there was Claire Valdez, and she also won. So those are the three people that Zoran Madami, the mayor of New York, basically endorsed, and he won clean sweep. Everybody was shocked. Trump is now saying the communists are taking over, but the truth is they're not even communists. They're socialists, because communism is a theory that is not been achieved yet. It's a long-term economic and political ideology, uh, and people are working on it, but that's not what they are. They are democratic socialists, members of still the Democratic Party. The question is, was their win a good thing? Was it what they did a good thing? And let me read to you then what is socialism for those of you who don't know. Socialism is an economic and political philosophy advocating for collective or governmental ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. Its core goal is to reduce economic inequality by prioritizing human needs over corporate profit. That's a good thing. Ensuring the wealth is distributed equally amongst the citizens. I just read you the basic definition of socialism, gente. Uh, and I think it's a good thing for many reasons. And obviously, if you see there, it's collective versus individual. If you have people who are all about the me, the I, then you will never have collective ownership and control of government and means of production. That means the things that everything from infrastructure to things like big factories that make big things. That doesn't mean individual people can't do things. No, that doesn't mean under socialism people or individuals can't do. No, you got millionaires and billionaires even in China and other countries where they have socialism. What it means is that individuals themselves, like Elon Musk, cannot hog up, cannot hoard, cannot keep all these basic natural resources, including water, air, food, medicine, and services away from the public, away from the people. That is a great thing. So socialism is not a bad thing. Now, what about democratic socialism, and especially this thing called the DSA? It's an entity. It's a party. Well, yeah, I should say it's an entity, and a branch of pretty much the left wing political parties. Well, that is something that suffer debate, taste. Some people like their organization. I believe Cornel West and Dolores Huerta are honorary members of the Democratic Socialists of America. People know the most famous, I would say, Democratic Socialists to come out include people like uh, AOC, or Alexandra Ocasio Cortez, who is also a congresswoman who at an early age, and she was waiting tables at a restaurant in New York. She won. She kicked out this rich white dude who had been there forever, and he doubted her. He badmouthed her, and she kicked his butt. Now, some people like her, some people don't, but the point is, she's one of the most popular people to come out of the DSA. Bernie Sanders is a Democratic Socialist, and I don't know how much of a DSA member he is, but he's endorsed these same people too. So the people I'm bringing up these names, if you agree with them on most things, then Democratic Socialism or Democratic Socialist of America might appeal to you, and it may be a good thing, especially if you participate in voting. If you participate, you want change, right? Now, I say if you want change because some people want change, but some people don't want to fight for it. Some people want change, but all they want to do is theorize. Some people want change, but all they want to do is criticize. These people are at least taking a stand, are trying to use that system, work that system to their advantage, especially taking on the Democratic machine, the Democratic Party that controls New York and other places in California, especially living in Los Angeles, are probably going to have an opportunity to, get rid of Karen Bass. Karen Bass is a Democrat. She used to be a socialist, a communist. She let that go because corporations come in with their money, and I hate to say it, but now she's being challenged by, I believe it's an Indian woman who is taking on her, who is more socialist than Karen Bass, and more progressive in that sense. And that's what a lot of these political candidates have in common. A lot of them are young, and they're progressive, and they're left wing, and they're unapologetic. They are not going to, or they don't want to sell out to the Zionists in Israel, that government. They don't want to sell out to the corporations like Elon Musk, etc., right? And Meta. They want to do the work for the people. They want hospitals, they want medicine, they want things like that, affordable places to live. And that's one of the reasons these candidates in New York also won, because they ran on the claims that, it's not enough to criticize Trump. Yeah, we know he's stupid. We know he's dumb. We know he's a racist piece of crap, whatever you want to call him. We know that. All that is true. He's a fascist. He's a racist. But what do you have to offer, Democratic Party? That's what they're saying. And that's what a lot of us have been saying forever as part of Raza Unida. For example, a lot of us, we've always asked that question, but we also know that self determination is critical for our community. Now, here are people in New York saying the same thing. They're not Raza Unida, but they've been part of DSA, and they're questioning their own party, in this case, taking on their own party, and they're young people of color. I got to give it to them, especially the second woman who I mentioned today. She posted stuff. I mean, she took shots at everybody from Kamala Harris to Biden to the system to colonizers to the justice system. I love her stances. She is right on. Now she retracted some of those stances, or at least erased her Twitter feed or whatever. I wish she wouldn't do that, because she needs to stand on that, known it. She is right about all that. She, during the time after the Palestinian genocide had become obvious, she had already been protesting in universities and colleges. She's a doctoral student, so that's awesome, and she's young. And so we got to support people like her. We got to support people, others like them, who take on these positions and call out their own party for the hypocrisy, for the double speak, and for the corporate sellouts, because a lot of them are selling out to corporations straight up. They take that corporate money and they're happy and they're done, and then they stop thinking about the people who got them there in the first place. So, is democratic socialism a bad thing? Nope, it is not. A matter of fact, it's a good thing. Here's some core principles of democratic socialism. So, social ownership, for example. Instead of private individuals or corporations owning businesses and resources, the means of production, for example, ownership is held collectively by the public, the community, or the state. Okay, that's important because some people hear that and they think, wait, what? The government's going to hold everything? Uh, no, they hold it collectively. The people. We already practice some of this, at a certain, I would say, level today, right? Even though it's not truly democratic socialism or socialism, I should say, to call the fire department, even police officers, and hospitals. These are in schools, by the way, public schools. These are institutions that should be owned by the community. Right now, they get contracts because technically, any city, any town can fire their police department, can fire their hospitals, can fire their fire department. And the only reason that people don't get rid of those services is because everybody knows they need them. Your house can burn down, no matter how rich you are. You can get shot. You need the police, and obviously, rich people get police more than we do. So they don't want that going away. So rich people will tell you that socialism is bad, right? These capitalists will tell you that, but in reality, they love it. They need it, and Donald Trump has proven that socialism works because who has he given breaks to? All his friends, all the wealthy people. Unfortunately, that proves that if there's socialism in America, it's for the wealthy, for the 1%, not for the rest of us. It should be the other way around, but they won't tell you that. Instead, Donald Trump is calling this the boogeyman language of communism, of the godless socialists. They're coming, they're coming for your towns and your government and trying to scare people. Because remember, as I keep saying, he's going to cancel elections, everybody. In November 2026, when the elections are supposed to take place, and then the presidential elections, he is going to do something crazy either before then or by then to cancel the elections, to take over. He's already on it. All right, so be careful with that. All right, so let me give you another principle of democratic socialism, or what socialism is. Equitable wealth distribution. Socialism seeks to eliminate extreme disparities between the rich and the poor, often by providing free or highly subsidized public services like healthcare, education, and housing. Now, people get scared when they hear that. They're like, what? I'm going to be taxed more? And the answer is no, not really, because you're already, when you go to the doctors and you have to, you have to choose between whether you feed your kids or you get that $2,000 procedure on your, tooth, or $9,000 procedure for your teeth for your family, and then you got to feed your kids. Well, already the private corporations, they got their foot in the door long before we did, and you still have to pay a copay. Think about that, Raza. We still pay we still pay under this capitalist system. We still pay these pharmaceutical companies, these medical companies. We still pay them on an arm and a leg because they got their foot in the door, because the politicians have allowed them to. And it should be the other way around. If we're going to pay taxes, which we already do, if we're going to pay taxes, let things be free, including healthcare, because you don't know if you're going to slip, fall, your grandma, your grandpa going to slip and fall, break that hip, right? You don't know when that's going to happen, but it might happen. You don't know when somebody's going to wreck into you, a drunk driver. It doesn't matter how well you drive, but let's say your life is in danger because now you need a blood transfusion or something. Uh, under socialism, they're not going to ask you for a copayment. They're not going to ask you, do you have insurance? They're not going to let you die there because you can't afford it, right? And that should be the case with any government. I've seen that happen in Cuba. As poor as they are, they take care of people because ahead of time, the government makes sure that these services are paid for. So don't get scared when people try to tell you, yeah, socialism and communism, especially socialism, has never worked because they raise your taxes. You're already paying taxes, Rasa. And especially on the back end, when you really get sick because you avoided going to the doctors, like many of us have, including myself, because you didn't have the money because you had to pay for the rent. Yeah. And at the end, you end up paying a lot more than what you think you would pay under a socialist system. So just don't believe that lie there. Economic planning. Here's another core value of socialism. Rather than relying entirely on free market forces, supply and demand, resources are often managed or directed by the government or worker cooperatives to serve community needs. Well, people hear that and they get scared. And they're thinking, what? The government's going to take over and make all these decisions? And the answer is no, the government's not going to take over. The people are going to take over. They're going to decide because the people are the government. But these capitalists and right wingers try to scare you and say the government wants to run your life. No, it's collective. Again, the key word there is collective. The government's going to make decisions about collective control of not just the means of, a production, not just the hospitals and institutions. They should make a decision based on what the people need, not what individual wants to make in terms of profit, right? In terms of who gets what and who doesn't. Because the truth is, the police department doesn't respond to poor parts of the community as quickly as it does to rich people. You know that. There's studies that show that when rich people call the cops, that there poor people call the cops, and somebody just broke into your car, file a report online. We'll get there when we have time, right? That's not fair, and those are decisions being made by government. No, side note, we know that cops get there, and unfortunately, when somebody calls because their son or daughter or somebody's struggling from mental health issues, maybe they're suicidal, cops get there and they shoot them. So we don't get it good on the front end, we don't get it good on the back end. We need a different government. So with that example, let me just say, socialism is a good thing. Democratic socialism in New York and in other parts of the country, especially under the younger generation who has seen past the boomer generation's lies and Fox News lies and right wing lies and Latinos for Trump's delusions. They see the good things in democratic socialism. They see the good things in socialism in general, and I do too. Just as a history teacher, let me remind everybody, long before there was democratic socialism, long before there was socialism where we share things collectively, guess who else did? Tribes did, indigenous groups did, even the poorest families here in America today, whether you're black, whether you're brown, whether you're a poor white person, I bet you don't charge your children for food. I'm hoping you don't. It's in your nature, it's in your blood, it's in our DNA to share, to take care of people, to love our family, our immediate family, right? Most of us. But tribally, on a tribal level, definitely, it's been practiced for thousands of years, long before Karl Marx and all these other people that people try to warn you about, long before Fidel Castro, long before the mayor of New York is around, calling himself a socialist. Okay. So I did want to bring you a quick definition and discussion on socialism, specifically the democratic socialism of America. Is that a good thing for us as Chicanos, as raza, right? And I say it is. I think it is. At least the socialism part is. The party, that's up to people to decide. But socialism, yes, that's a good thing.